What's up, everybody? Andrew Mahone here with Tricky Jim and Natalie and Sean.
Woo!
And we are heading to the Collinsville Regional Championships. I literally just finished my stream and we hopped in the car and it's Thursday and we got, what, 7 hours?
7.5.
7.5 hours in this beautiful weather that we've got here.
Supposed to be good there, though.
Hopefully it improves a little bit because it's looking a little bit dicey right now, but I'm excited. I've been testing Alolan Exeggcute a lot. I've been testing Snorlax VMAX a lot. You know, and then I also have some old favorites. We've got Night March I could always fall back on. We've got Turbo Dark I could fall back on and stuff like that. But really just looking forward to enjoying the event. All my friends are gonna be there. Full Grip's gonna be here vending as well. So it should just be a great time with the homies. Hoping for some championship points too. I'm a little bit over halfway to my invite. Getting the invites a little bit more challenging this year than in previous years because I'm doing a lot more streaming of live events. So that means I don't get to participate in them. But still got my eyes set on that. So hopefully we can get some points and I'll keep you guys updated on what my deck choice selection process ends up being like and how I narrow it down in the next couple of days. Got just under 2 hours left in the drive. We've done a lot of talking about potential decks, things we could run into this weekend. As it is right now, I'm worried about seeing decks that have Honchkrow GX, as if I'm leaning towards Snorlax, which I feel like at this point in the drive I am, but if you have ever gone to these tournaments, you know how things can change between the drive and the actual submitting of the deck list. I'm leaning towards Snorlax right now, just like theoretically, but I still got 2 days of testing ahead, so I'm thankful for that, but definitely worried about the potential of Honchkrow GX. After thinking about it, I had thought myself into a position where I'm like, oh, I could, maybe target whistle up something out of a Honchkrow's discard pile, and then Guzma around the Honchkrow, attach my energy, and then Great Catcher up the Honchkrow and KO it with Snorlax. So that might be wishful thinking, but at least I'm kind of in the clear there. I don't have a way to get around Alolan Persian GX, and I'm also kind of just worried about the presence of control decks in general, Pyroar, things like that at the event. I'm pretty confident in Snorlax's ability to hold its own against decks that just take prizes, and I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on some cards and kind of hammering out the final inclusions in this list. Just setting up things here at Collinsville. We've got the booth ready. It looks awesome. And we have the skateboards set up. The Pokemon Center Bear Walker skateboards. Check those out. Oh my gosh. They look amazing. I absolutely love these things and really excited that Full Grip was able to pick up some of them to sell. So, my gosh, the Gyarados one. Nuts! Booth is looking good here at Collinsville. Waiting for people to get here. Booth opens in about an hour, and I'm excited. There's a challenge happening today as well at 5 that I might play in, so I'm thinking about that. I'm leaning towards Snorlax right now, so I might just give it a trial run today in the challenge. Probably going to be a pretty big league challenge though, so I'm trying to choose between either playing in the challenge or testing with some buddies when they get into town. They're probably going to be getting into town around the same time, but either way, I'm gonna be playing a lot of cards tonight, really trying to narrow down decisions. The last night I have to really prepare. Last night we got to play Matt's Cube. That was a lot of fun in the hotel. It was a Mutant Cube draft. I hadn't really played his cube in a long time, so that was a lot of fun. Ended up going 2-1. Deck was pretty cool. I had a Lightning Grass deck. It was neat, and there were Prism Stars, and I got to play Shaymin Prism Star and this Venusaur, E-Reader Venusaur, was really sick. So really looking forward to playing some more cards today though, and really narrowing down my decision for tomorrow's deck. Me and the crew are all shipping Snorlax. We got Andrew Dankis playing Snorlax, we've got Carl playing Snorlax, we got Riley playing Snorlax, and we got Joey playing Snorlax. Yes, we're all on Snorlax, and we're all rocking a 1/1 Galarian Rapidash line. Look at that, yes, with the Ponyta, taking no L's to Shocklock. Yes, so that is the goal there. Yeah, we'll see. Apparently, it may help versus Turbo Dark as well. So that's the hope. But nothing like some last-minute deck changes before the event, which starts in about 30 minutes. Getting ready for round 1 now. This event hall is packed. There are a ton of people here. I'm nervous, so just hoping for the best. Check this out. Round 1 starts in like 2 minutes, so better get seated. Just got there versus Baby Blacephalon. It was really sketch. Baby Blacephalon, tough because it can easily one-hit knock out my Snorlaxes. And in game 2, I prized 2 of my Snorlax V, so I only had access to 1. But Stinger GX got in there, so that was really exciting. I got the Stinger GX, my opponent back up to 3. They only had 2 prizes left, brought them back up to 3, and then was able to shake and bake with 1 more Snorlax VMAX after I Rescue Stretchered it back into the deck to take the game, and was very good against the Baby Blacephalon deck that I faced. There weren't any abilities in it, so end stuck very hard, and overall the deck worked great. I was happy with it. I liked the engine. I was really worried and stressed that I was going to miss the Battle Compressor that we cut from the deck at the last minute, but it ended up shaking out. So 1-0, and a lot of the guys that I've talked to with the Snorlax deck are also 1-0 so far, so hoping that this continues. Just finished round 2, was able to beat a Turbo Zacian deck. It was really close. Game 2, I started with a dead hand and had to Colress for 2 and promptly lost that game. Started Dedenne, absolutely horrendous. Game 3 was really tight. I mean, the game only lasted a few turns each time. The match went very quick because it was just knockout here, knockout there, knockout there. And in the end, we were able to get there. My opponent had some really tough Junipers, having to just discard a lot of Metal Saucers and Max Elixirs without utilizing them. So we were able to knock out Zacian and then just put them on the back foot from there. But 2-0 so far, feeling good about the deck. Can have some sketchy starting turns sometimes. Choosing to go first and not getting to play a supporter is rough. But that being said, Snorlax, you get to go first every game. So that's pretty nice because your opponent is usually choosing to go second in this very fast format. So I do like that we get to go first every time, just about every time with this deck, and that has definitely been playing to my advantage so far. So 2-0, let's get it. Just had a tough round 3, played against my good friend Frank Persick. He was playing this spicy Mew Fates Collide Cramorant deck, and it was definitely really cool. Plays Dimension Valley, and for just a double colorless, you can copy Spit Shot on Cramorant with the Mew from Fates Collide. It was a really close match. Game 1, I kind of had some bad beats getting my deck set up. Game 2, I was able to really take command of the match when Frank had to discard a lot of Dimension Valleys, and I was able to just capitalize on bringing up GXs at the right time with Great Catcher and then finishing the game like that. Game 3, didn't have time to finish, so we ended up going to time, and it was a tie. So 2-0-1 so far. It's lunch break now, and I've got some of the Nutri-Grain bars and things like that here at the Full Grip booth. Things are going really well here at the booth this weekend, so really stoked for the squad and hoping to keep this momentum going into the next round. There are a lot of doll decks here, apparently, which we don't really have a great answer for. We can Stinger GX, we can Target Whistle, but the doll decks play like 8 of these Pokédolls, which just seems really exhausting to work through since at maximum I only have access to 8 energy in order to try and win the game, since I could play all 4 of my triple acceleration energies and I could special charge them back in twice. I guess I could Dowsing Machine. I could have access to 10 attacks if I pushed my dex limit, all the way, but that's not going to be enough to deal with dolls. They have Rescue Stretcher, not Rescue Stretchers, they have Rescue Scarfs going on the dolls, a whole bunch of things to bring the dolls back into play. Format with 8 dolls in it seems insane, so I'm sure we're going to be seeing more of that at the top tables, and hopefully some Snorlax as well. Just had an insane round 4. I played against Andy Martin, who had a really cool deck. It was a Morpeko VMAX Dusknoir deck in expanded format, and I'm thinking Morpeko, he starts it, I have no idea what's going on, and funny enough, there was actually one of his buddies sitting next to us, so I was, you know, surrounded by Morpeko VMAX decks that I've never seen before, never heard of. Apparently it was Andy Martin's creation, super cool. He says he's going to post it to Twitter after, so I'm going to be sharing it on the YouTube channel for sure. I was so impressed. So the idea of the deck is that there's a Duskull that can evolve itself if you discard 3 cards from your hand. So he battle compressors eggs away in order to get the turn 1 Duskull into play, and then or Dusclops or whatever, Duskull into Dusclops, and then goes turn 2 into Dusknoir. It uses the Morpeko's Spark attack to spread damage, and when you finally knock out a Morpeko, he VMAX evolves, he goes counter energy, Tapu Koko, Dance of the Ancients, and just hits for 180 and spreads 20 to all of your bench Pokemon. And if you don't heal it, or bump your state, you know, don't heal it, then he will start moving that damage around with the Dusknoir. Really creative deck. He was able to completely clear my bench one game. I mean, it was totally nuts, and I just had to rely on drawing the game-winning cards out of Colress. Target Whistle came in clutch, won a game with Target Whistle. Game 2, I was able to take out his only Dusknoir, so he was not able to move the damage around for a game-winning combo, and then I finally was able to knock out a Morpeko VMAX for a game. Since Morpeko VMAX only has 300 hit points, it's within that Snorlax one-hit KO range, so that played to my favor as well. So we're 3-0-1, feeling pretty good, and apparently Brady's 4-0 with his secret spicy stall deck, so very excited for the crew. All of us are doing relatively well. I know Riley is about 3-1. Andrew Dankus has a few wins as well under his belt with the Snorlax deck, so hopefully this continues. Just finished round 5, and I won versus Trevenant and Dusknoir, super close series. It was 2-0 though. In game 2, it got pretty hectic. My hand was getting just reset in again and again with Night Watch. I took some quick prizes on a Gengar and Mimikyu Tag Team GX, but I was having a hard time finding the final energy I needed to win the game. And with 150 damage on my Snorlax VMAX and my opponent very close to the win, I was able to Cinccino into the Verseeker Colress for 12 and find the final triple acceleration energy that I needed to clinch it. So we're 4-0-1. If I win 2 more, we're guaranteed day 2. So things are all on track right now. Some of the homies are having a little bit of trouble with the consistency of the deck, not opening Snorlaxes or getting Snorlaxes down turn 1. Riley's 3-2 right now, but there are a lot of stall players. I'm being warned that the top tables are just filled with them. So hopefully I can miss a couple of those en route to getting 2 more wins, and then you know, if I at least make day 2, I'll be stoked. So let's you know, cross our fingers. Haven't lost yet, so. Just got finished with round 6 and 7, and I barely pulled them out. They were really close. I played against Drew K, regional champion, on stream. It was super nerve-wracking. I opened horrible hands in like all of my games. It was just completely nuts. A wild, wild matchup. He was playing Bird Trio with the Ho-Ohs to Rebirth out of the discard pile, and he benched me just turn 1. He went second and just got the turn 1 Bird Trio GX and just did 110 damage to 3 of my Pokemon and benched me completely. From that moment on, I was super scared of the deck. It was really nerve-wracking, but we ended up getting there in a really tight game 2 and 3, running it back. And then I played against Cinccino Mill, and Cinccino Mill was a fine matchup because of the Stinger GX. So we got to Stinger GX, and then I only had to take 3 prizes. There weren't any dolls that I had to worry about or anything like that, but I had to really play around the Giraffe Rig, lost owning all of my energy, which was really stressful as well. So we're 6-0-1, guaranteed for day 2, and I couldn't be happier. I mean, I'm just like completely stoked. I'm just having a great time, and the Snorlax deck is proven to be pretty busted. So hopefully this luck continues, and you know, we'll see how things go in day 2. Still got, well, we just finished 6-0-1, so I got 7 rounds 8 and 9 left. So we'll see how far we can take this. Finished round 8 and was able to get there versus Dollstall. Really excited. The control decks are the decks I was really concerned about heading into this event. Dollstall, this version played 4 Robosubs and 4 Lily's Polka Dolls, and just tries to run you out of resources that way. Stinger GX, again, was amazing. Allowed me to just shorten the length of the game overall. I was able to utilize Target Whistle to take out Threat out of the discard pile for the final prize of the game, even though my opponent didn't have any actual prize-worthy Pokemon in play. It was just dolls, and that was it. But the target whistle got me game 1. Game 2 tried to trap me with Snorlax, but I had AZ, didn't know I ran AZ in the deck, so we ended up getting the win that way. So we're 7-0-1 heading into the final round, and I couldn't be more excited. Just finished round 9, I won, I beat another Trevnor player. It was such a stressful series. I lost game 1 and was just getting absolutely routed, and was able to come back in games 2 and 3 with a decent board setup. I drew out of the Night Watch when I needed to. I hit some really clutch top decks. I mean, there really isn't that much defense you can do against this deck. It's just ridiculous. You know, they Horror House GX, they Night Watch you, they Ace Trainer you, they blow up the Melodic. It's just a completely insane deck to have to face because you feel like you have such little control over the outcome. But we got there, 8-0-1, so excited. Should be top seed or 2 or 3 heading into day 2, and I can't wait to see how day 2 goes. So for the rest of the day, we're gonna see if we can't get some food going and celebrate. I'm really stoked. I mean, this is just more points towards the invite, so we're over halfway there now, and gonna keep chugging along. Getting ready for day 2, I'm top seed, and there are a lot of control decks in day 2. A lot of stall decks, a lot of Trevnor decks, a lot of Rowlet and Alolan Exeggcute. At 8-0-1, I have a shot at playing any of the other players who are 8-1. There's a Turbo Dark that plays an Alolan Persian GX. At 8-1, there is Will Jenkins with the Trevnor that I played during round 9 yesterday, and there is a Rowlet and Alolan Exeggcute at 8-1. So either of those 3 players might be my day 1 or day 2 round 1 opponents. So looking forward to those matches, trying to figure out if I could just get myself a couple of wins. I think 2 wins should put me at 31 match points, and then I should be able to just tie from there. So if I can go 2-0-1 on the day, I should be guaranteed into top 8. It's 5 rounds, so I can afford to go 2-2-1, and I will still make top 8. So that's the dream. Just need a couple of wins, and hopefully we can get them. There's a lot of scary decks out there, a lot of stall stuff, but I think with the Stinger GX, we're pretty well prepared to handle that as well prepared as we could possibly be. So we're gonna just see how it goes and try to just continue playing well, and hopefully it buffs out. So 2 rounds into day 2, I was able to win a super close one versus Turbo Dark. It actually played an Alolan Persian GX, which was a really scary. Game 1, he started the Ditto and was going straight for the Alolan Persian GX. He did have to Juniper away a Darkrai GX though, so I had a win condition. I had to Stinger GX and then target whistle the Darkrai GX twice with Dowsing Machine. That's my only out, right, to be able to beat the lone Persian strat that he's going for. So I go for the Stinger GX, and he shovels his hand into his deck instead of his prizes, just instantly, and there's no saving it. So we got that win, got destroyed game 2, and then game 3 I had the most epic, insane comeback. I didn't attack till like turn 4, but I just end him hard twice. Was able to like do field blower shenanigans with my Shaymins in Skyfield to like clear all of my low prizes after taking out his big attacker, and was able to get there with a hard end to 2, end to 1 back to back, and it was just like really crazy. Just lost to Will Jenkins. He's now 10-1 with Trevnor. Trevnor is just an absolutely brutal deck to play against. He got the turn, turn 1 Horror House GX into the Trevnor, blow up the Melodic, and use the Garbodor too. He has Garbodor in his list. He evolves Ditto into Garbodor with the Floatstone, and so when he gets the perfect lock, which he did both games against me, he had Garbodor out, Floatstone, and limiting my hand to 0 cards every game. So I'm just top decking, hoping to draw out of it, and never do. So we are 9-1-1 now, still in a good spot. Just have to win 1 more game, and then hopefully I can ID into top 8. Just finished my final round of day 2 Swiss. I ended up IDing with Zach Cooper, who I actually tested with leading up to the event, and I'm at 33 points, so I should be guaranteed for top 8. I'm really excited. I had a really close series against Isaiah Bradner as well. It was just very back and forth. He was playing Trevnor in the second to last round, and it came down to time in the final game, and He ended up giving me the win because I was ahead on prizes. So big props to Isaiah for good sportsmanship, and that was just really, really cool. And then got to tie with Zach Cooper to guarantee that 33 points. So really excited. It's been a really tough day too. There are a lot of gnarly decks out here. There are stall decks galore. Zach Cooper was playing a stall deck. There are Trevnor decks, which you just never know how it's going to go. A lot of item lock decks with the Rowlet and Alolan Exeggcute too. And I'm just stoked to have another top 8 under my belt. I can't wait to get started, and hopefully it goes well. Last couple times I made it to top 8, I ended up losing right in top 8. So hopefully that doesn't happen this time. But either way, I can't be disappointed. The deck performed phenomenally, and I couldn't be happier with how everything is going. So we'll see how top 8 goes. Fingers crossed. We are on our way home now. I lost in top 8. It was so close. I played against John Mastovi. He had the stall deck with the dolls, and it was a really close set. I won game 1 and felt very good from there. 75 minutes, best of 3. Won game 1, just barely had the resources to be able to pull that game out. Game 2, he was able to use Chip Away Durant and got rid of all of my triple acceleration energies in that hand, and I had to use my dowsing machine to put 2 of the energies back in my deck. And then at that point, that was not enough energies to close off the game. I had 2 prizes left, but then he ended up milling 1 more energy with a Belelba and Bryson Man or something like that, and I just didn't have the energy left to take 2 more prizes. So on to game 3. Time gets called probably 10 minutes in, but I have the worst opening hand. It's like 4 versus Seeker, a dowsing machine, and it's an unplayable opening hand. So John has all the time in the world to just Stevens Resolve, gets the perfect board set up with 2 Pokemon, all 4 dolls are in play, and when time gets called, John is able to AZ up both his Pokemon before I finally get to a position where I would be able to attack. But then on the following turn, he AZs up his second Pokemon. So I have a board position with just 4 dolls. He has a board position with 4 dolls going into +3, and and it just and I have to be careful too, because I can't just take a knockout on something because before time is called, because then he could just Sudowoodo watch and learn it and take a knockout. So I have to get Altaria out, but I'm drawing horribly. It's so bad. So I finally get to an established board state, but by then John's board state is perfect, and he's able to Stevens Resolve for a Litleo and a DCE. And because I was drawing bad, I had benched an Exeggcute, trying to set up and Shaymin for more cards, and John Guzma it up and KO'd it with a Litleo that does conveniently 30 damage. So he took the first prize. It was and it was in +3 turns. It was actually past the +3. We were on turn 4 or 5 even, and he ended up winning the set. So we got $750, 100 championship points, and 3 booster boxes of Sword and Shield, and I'm very excited. I mean, as far as the 3 regionals that I've been to so far this season, we got 2 top 8s and a top 16. I can't really be too mad about that. I am upset that I was the only real attacking, non-item lock deck, non-hand lock deck in top 8. I really felt like I had a very strong deck and a strong chance to be able to win the whole thing. So best of luck to John in his top 4 performance, and hopefully the Snorlax deck catches on a little bit, because I think it is a very strong deck in expanded format. And definitely big shout outs to Full Grip Games, all my friends, and Natalie especially for the help with the deck, and then Zach Cooper, as well as Riley and JW
for helping, as well as Natalie, with the ideas for the deck and its construction and so on and so forth. And that's going to be it. When you see the next part of this vlog, I'm going to be at home showing off the list a little bit and talking about some of my matchups. And thanks again to everybody who helped host the Collinsville Regional Championships. It was an amazing event, always one of my favorites, and definitely an amazing time.
Finally back home after a long weekend in Collinsville. It was an amazing trip, so thank you so much to everybody who was encouraging over the course of the weekend, all my friends for testing with me and helping me with the list. All in all, could not be happier with the performance of Snorlax VMAX in a new expanded metagame, and I'm excited to show off the list that I brought to the event. The king of the deck, Snorlax VMAX with 340 hit points. And look just at this card for a second and how ridiculous it is. It is such a simple card. 340 hit points and almost no text on it. It literally is just one big Snorlax's belly and an attack G-Max Fall, which does 60 damage plus 30 more for each of your own benched Pokemon. Snorlax was the backbone of this deck, and you only really need 2 of them. I can count on one hand, how many times Snorlax VMAX got knocked out over the course of the weekend. I only lost 2 series the whole weekend. One to Will Jenkins with Trevenant and Dusknoir. I ended up 3-1 versus Trevenant and Dusknoir on the weekend with a 1-1 record versus Will Jenkins. He had a very powerful list with Garbodor, very similar to the list that Justin Bakari ended up taking to win the entire event. And overall, I felt like we were favored versus Trevenant and Dusknoir, but of course, they could just lock you out of the game and make it very difficult to take your knockouts. That being said, you only have to take 2 knockouts. Snorlax easily one-hit KOs both Trevenant and Dusknoir Tag Team GX, as well as Gengar and Mimikyu. So if you could just piece together 2 attacks, you can win that game. And then the other loss that I had on the weekend was to John Mostovi with his Dullstall deck. And as you will see with my list, I ended up teching for Shocklock. I thought that would be a control deck that saw more play, as it was a control deck that people would be comfortable with, maybe a control deck they're used to playing, but instead I could have, spent more time teching for the Dullstall matchup. That deck was everywhere at the Collinsville Regional Championships. We've got a 2-2 Cinccino line. Cinccino was an amazing consistency engine in this deck, allowing you to make do and draw cards even under Mucklock, which was really important. Muck was a very popular inclusion in a lot of decks this weekend, including this one. We have the 1-1 Muck line, and the Alolan Grimer actually was an all-star in this list as well for its collect attack. There were many times if I missed an attack or something like that, or I'm playing against a control deck, I would just retreat into Alolan Grimer and collect a free attack to draw 2 cards, one of the little hidden gems about this list and something that I really enjoyed. And then, of course, the Alolan Muk's Power of Alchemy ability turns off basic Pokemon's abilities. This is very good for shutting down Sudowoodo, a card that we played in this list. If your opponent plays Sudowoodo, you're going to want to turn that ability off so that you can fill your bench to 8 with 8 benched Pokemon using Skyfield, which is a stadium from Roaring Skies. With 8 benched Pokemon, you could deal 300 damage with Snorlax VMAX, and as you saw from the results of the weekend, almost nobody played Snorlax VMAX. There was not a lot of them in day 2. So it really was just one-hit KOing anything in the format. Every deck that I faced, Snorlax VMAX's 300 damage output was enough to KO the biggest attacker in their deck. And the Muck was not only great for turning off Sudowoodo, but also just for shutting down decks in general. As you may have seen in the streamed match that I played against Drew Cates' Bird Trio Ho-Oh EX deck, the Muck was essential in turning that game 3 around and making it so his Ho-Ohs could no longer rebirth, and also making it so his draw engine was just shut down.
Another great 1/1 line in this deck is the Altaria with the shiny Swablu. Love that card. Altaria's Clear Humming ability turns off your colorless Pokemon's weaknesses, which is a huge deal. Snorlax VMAX is weak to fighting and gives up 3 prizes if it gets knocked out. Watch and Learn Sudowoodo was a huge card throughout the course of the weekend and accessible with just a counter energy if the opponent was behind on prizes. Altaria is great because it's got this Delta Evolution trait, which allows you to evolve it from the Swablu on the same turn you play the Swablu. So it's very easy to get into play. And the best part about it is that Altaria is a stage 1. So it's not turned off by Silent Lab and it's not turned off easily by Muk either. So you can play Muk and have your Altaria in play. And that was one of the most powerful things about this deck as well, is that you could turn off basic Pokemon's abilities with the Alolan Muk, but you could still draw through your deck with Cinccino's Make Do and still have access to abilities like Altaria's Clear Humming ability. Another all-star in this deck, Naganadel-GX, and we've got the beautiful shiny Naganadel-GX. So big thanks to Natalie for suggesting that I purchase this shiny one, and also for her help with the list in general. This Naganadel-GX is stunning, and I'm very happy that I got to play it. It was essential in my tournament run as well against decks like Dullstall. I also played against a Cinccino mill deck, against non-GX decks. There were so many situations where limiting both players to 3 prizes was beneficial, especially against the Dullstall decks. Decks that just flood the field with Lily's Pokedolls and Robo-Subs and things like that. They make it very difficult for you to take all 6 prizes. So Naganadel-GX, who we just evolved from the Ditto Prism Star, with a triple acceleration energy, you have access to that Stinger GX to just make it so that each player, both you and your opponent, have only 3 prize cards remaining. You could take basically take half of the prize cards of the game with 1 triple acceleration energy. And against a stall deck, that leaves you 3 more energy in deck to take your remaining 3 prizes, which is a very doable thing. It was how I was able to beat the stall decks that I did play against in Swiss, and I almost got there versus John Mostovi in top 8. It was very, very close series. I won game 1, and game 3 really came down to the wire, but I just set up horribly game 3. Gave John infinite time to really set up his win condition. So very, very clutch card, and I highly recommend this in every single Snorlax VMAX deck. Should simply not be running the deck without Naganadel-GX, since there is no other GX attack that we have access to. Now, something funny about this particular list, we actually played the Galarian Rapidash with a Galarian Ponyta. Now, this was a hard tech for Shocklock, a deck that I expected to be way more popular than it was on the weekend. Unfortunately for me, there was virtually no Shocklock at all, and none that I encountered in day 2 or day 1 of competition, and I never got the Galarian Rapidash into play whatsoever. That being said, Ponyta was busted. I got to start Ponyta a bunch, and I really didn't care if it got knocked out, so that was pretty cool. Also, it just added a lot of swag points to the deck, getting to play our pony Pokemon in the list. So if you're looking for other cards to play, Wobbuffet with the Bide Barricade ability is a great option. Another Floatstone could be a great option as well. And you could spend these spots teching for the Dullstall matchup. There's a lot more you can do to shore up that matchup, and I think that these 2 spots could go towards a tech for that matchup as well. The Sudowoodo was insane this weekend. This card was phenomenal. Snorlax VMAX wants to go first every single game, and we have the consistency engine to do it. With 4 Ultra Ball and 4 Quick Ball in the deck, it's very easy to search out your basic Pokemon for the most part in the opening turn of the game. And one of the benefits of going first with this deck is that you get to go find your Sudowoodo with the Roadblock ability on the first turn of the game, limiting your opponent's setup, because they can only set up, they can only use Shaymin-EX so many times, they can only day-to-day change so many times before they filled their bench with consistency Pokemon instead of the Pokemon they need to actually win the match. Roadblock Sudowoodo was essential again in that stream match that you might have seen against the Bird Trio deck. This card literally won me the set, limiting Drew's bench to just 4 Pokemon and making it so they couldn't put any more attackers into play, and giving me some time to eventually set up my Alolan Muk. Sudowoodo is also incredible against Trevenant and Dusknoir. If you go first, you can get the Sudowoodo out and really limit their draw engine and make it so that they may hiccup. If the Trevenant and Dusknoir deck misses a beat somewhere along the way, you can really exploit that that speed bump for them, and then just take over the game, set up a couple of Cinccinos, and get your bench filled up and make it very easy to win the rest of the match. Now, my list originally started with 2 copies of Exeggcute and a Battle Compressor. After talking with Riley Hulbert, we decided to cut the second Exeggcute and the Battle Compressor, just leaving 1 lone egg in the deck. That being said, the 1 lone egg was completely busted with 4 copies of Quick Ball. Again, it was very easy to go find the Exeggcute on a turn where you didn't really need a Pokemon. Because we run 4 Quick Balls and 4 Ultra Balls, you would usually Colress into big hands and have the luxury of being able to just Quick Ball for the egg and then make do trade it away. So that was very easy to accomplish, and I think 1 copy of Exeggcute really made your discards a lot smoother, but then also didn't clunk up the deck too much. So I'd highly recommend just the 1 Exeggcute, totally fine in the list. And that's it for the cast of Pokemon. We really have quite the crew here with the Pokemon. The Tapu Lele was amazing. Wonder Tag for Winona was one of my favorite things to do in this particular list as well. And again, you could sub out the 1/1 Galarian Rapidash line for another Floatstone would be good. A Wobbuffet could be good, as well as just whatever other tech Pokemon that you might want to include for a specific matchup. Like I said, Dullstall could be very close. I went 1/1 versus Dullstall on the weekend, but if you wanted to really sure that matchup up, you could put a tech in for that deck as well. Moving on to the trainers, and I really love the trainer engine in this deck. It's just so consistent, which is something that I just love about this list in particular. And I really felt at home in my wheelhouse playing this Snorlax VMAX deck. It felt like Raichu decks, the Circle Circuit Raichu that I had played previously, and it really just jived with me throughout the course of the weekend. I really felt like I was on top of my game. We got 2 Colress, 1 N, 1 Guzma, 1 Winona, and 1 AZ. So only 6 supporter cards in the deck. The Colress was the best supporter by far in the deck, allowing you to regularly shuffle your hand and draw between 10 and 16 cards, depending on how many basic or how many bench Pokemon both you and your opponent have in play. The Winona was also phenomenal. I regularly would Quick Ball for Tapu Lele-GX and Wonder Tag for Winona to set up multiple Snorlax VMAX. You can also grab the Cincinos with it. I mean, there's so much in this deck that you could grab with Winona. Winona just reads, search for 3 colorless Pokemon out of your deck, and this whole deck is colorless. And one of the most amazing things about Winona is you could get Ditto Prism Star, you could get Shaymin-EX. You could set up, and this is something that I did all the time, is that you would Winona after your first turn, maybe second turn, third turn, and you would go grab a Snorlax VMAX, you would grab a Cinccino, and then a Shaymin, and you could have a real explosive turn. If you could pare your hand down to low before the Shaymin, you're guaranteeing yourself a draw of at least 8, because you get to set up for 6, and then with the Cinccino plus 2 more, it really was phenomenal. Another cool thing that you could do with the Winona is grab the Swablu and the Altaria and just spring it into play instantly, since it does have that Delta Evolution trait. The AZ was the only healing that we played in the list. Some lists may opt to run Max Potion. That was not as needed over the course of the tournament. AZ operated just fine and also was an excellent option versus the stall decks, control decks, things like that. The ability to just pick your Pokemon up and move it completely made it so that you had 2 switching supporters. Guzma is a switching supporter, AZ was your other switching supporter, and then of course N to just limit your opponent to a low hand size and try to sweep with a big Snorlax VMAX. I won a couple of sets by ending my opponent to 1 or 2 cards, and then using Field Blower to eliminate all of the low HP Shaymins and all of the liabilities from my bench, just leaving a couple of Cincinos
and 2 gigantic Snorlax VMAXs, and making it so that my opponent had no easy route to end the game, as there's almost nothing in expanded format that easily does 340 damage to knock out your Snorlax VMAX. We play 4 Skyfields in the deck. Of course, Skyfield allowing you to have a bench of up to 8. It's phenomenal for this deck since we do more damage for the amount of bench Pokemon we have. 4 Ultra Ball and 4 Quick Ball, as I alluded to earlier, which was awesome. Like I said, you're going to want to go first with this deck every single time for the most part. And the thing about expanded format now is that your opponents are going to let you do that. And they're going to let you do that because a lot of them want to go second to try and get that turn 1 attack. So a lot of the decks were choosing to go second, which means that you are going to be going first, probably somewhere in the ballpark of 70 to 80% of games, since most decks are not choosing to go first except for Snorlax decks. So having the consistency engine, the 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Quick Ball, not only allowed you to have explosive turn 1s, but it really allowed you to go get key cards like Sudowoodo and disrupting cards like Muk. You know, you get your Grimer, get your Muk quick to make it so that your opponent would be punished by allowing you to go first, since that you can get some disruptive Pokemon into play as well. We got 4 copies of Versus Seeker, only 6 supporters, 4 copies of Versus Seeker, but that's why the Tapu Lele-GX was so good. We didn't play Battle Compressor, which was a consideration, but with the Tapu Lele-GX, you could use Wonder Tag to go grab whatever one of those supporters you wanted to get into the discard pile quickly. Usually versus Trevenant and Dusknoir, if I was going first, I would often use Wonder Tag, even though I couldn't play the supporter on my first turn, go grab Colress, and I would put the Colress into the discard pile with a Quick Ball, just so that I would turn my Versus Seekers on. I would make them live cards, live top decks, after my hand is getting removed. That way, I have essentially 4 more copies of Colress in my deck with all of the Versus Seekers that I had in the list. Dowsing Machine was an all-star in the deck as well, because it allowed me to get some of the key item cards back from my discard pile. Great Catcher and Target Whistle were 2 of the most important cards to get back with Dowsing Machine, and this combo ended games all weekend. If we knocked out a big 3-prize Pokemon, or even a GX, EX, Shaymin, something like that, you could just Target Whistle it back into play, Colress for a big hand, find your Great Catcher, bring it up, and knock it out with the triple acceleration energy you're bound to find off of a Colress for 12 or 14. And some Cinccino draws. So the explosive draw engine of this deck really allowed you to take advantage of the Target Whistle Great Catcher combo. Target Whistle is really awesome and helped me beat the Dull Stall decks that I played against as well. You just put a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard onto their bench. And the way that the games against Dull Stall that I won went, it was you get a quick Stinger GX, limit both you and your opponent to 3 prize cards. Take a knockout on a Pokemon that your opponent probably has to have in play. They start something, right? And then you would Target Whistle, Guzma, bring it back up, knock it out again. Then you Target Whistle, Guzma it up, and bring it back out, knock it out again. So you could Target Whistle, Dowsing Machine, Target Whistle, and that was the strategy for beating the Dull Stall decks. Great Catcher was phenomenal too, just because you could end and bring up something in the same turn. You could Colress and bring up something in the same turn, and a lot of expanded format at this point involves Pokemon EX and GX. Shaymin was a huge target for Great Catcher all weekend, as was Dedenne-GX. So the Great Catcher was phenomenal, as well as the Target Whistle, and I would not negotiate on either of those spots. That's part of what made this deck so good. Rescue Stretcher was great too, because we only run 2 Snorlax VMAX, so sometimes if it did happen to get knocked out, you wanted to have the Rescue Stretcher to bring back. Also, some decks would very aggressively target your Muk line. I'm thinking about the Cramorant V deck that I actually played against round 3, Frank Persick, who ended up top 16ing the event with his Cramorant V Mew Fates Collide deck. He would very regularly target down my Alolan Muk line, and I could just keep using Rescue Stretcher and threatening to get it back into play turn after turn, and that was very tough for Frank to play around. 2 copies of Special Charge really allowed our triple acceleration energy to go the distance against Dull Stall. I would very regularly Special Charge just one triple acceleration energy back into the deck because the Dullstall players did not really want to give up a prize with Girafarig to just get lost one energy. They would usually wait and see if they could get 2 triple acceleration energy out from the discard pile. So if you had just 1 triple acceleration energy in the discard pile, you could Special Charge it back into the deck before they could get to it with a Girafarig Get Lost attack. Same with your Versus Seekers. A lot of times the Dullstall players would want to Get Lost your Guzma or your AZ. So many times if you did play Guzma, you wanted to have a Versus Seeker in your hand so you could bring the Guzma back up and make it very difficult for your opponent to put it into the Lost Zone. 2 copies of Field Blower was a must-have for this weekend, not only for removing tools from Garbodor and removing cards like Silent Lab from play, but also for bumping your own Skyfield. The thing about the Snorlax VMAX card, and part of what makes it so good, is that even with only 5 bench Pokemon, you're still dealing 210 damage. That's enough to knock out just about every Pokemon GX or Pokemon EX you're going to encounter, except for tag teams. But most 2-prize Pokemon you can knock out with just 5 Pokemon. You don't even need the Skyfield. So a lot of times what you would do is you would set up using your Skyfield, use all your Shaymins, your Dedennes, things like that, get an explosive start, and then you would Field Blower your own Skyfield to remove your Shaymins from play, remove your Dedenne, your Tapu Lele from play, and create a board state where maybe you just have Muk, a couple of Cinccinos, 2 Snorlax VMAXs swinging for 210 damage, and never getting KO'd because they have 340 hit points. So the Field Blowers were amazing, not only for getting rid of tools and things like that, like I said, but also for eliminating your own liabilities from the bench. And then 2 copies of Floatstone were essential as well, just giving your deck some much needed mobility. Riley was jokingly calling this card the Snorlax VMAX Spirit Link, because in order to attack with your Snorlax VMAX, you almost always had to find one of the Floatstones. So the Floatstone was the kind of bottleneck card for a lot of your turn 2 attacks. If you could find the Floatstone, you'd usually launch a turn 2 attack with your Snorlax VMAX, but if you couldn't, then you were stuck just having to pass another turn. So a 3rd Floatstone could be good in the list, but 2 definitely got there, and I didn't feel like the deck was suboptimal only playing 2. However, 3 definitely loosens things up and could be a nice inclusion, especially if you decide to take out the 1/1 Galarian Rapidash line. I would suggest a 3rd Floatstone and Wobbuffet if you're deciding to play the Wobbuffet, which would help against your Vileplume matchup as well, because you have the opportunity to break their item lock, which is very strong, and having a 3rd Floatstone would make it easier to retreat into Wobbuffet and then retreat the Wobbuffet back out of the active without getting stuck with the Wob active. And then of course 3 triple acceleration energy, the only energy in the deck, and they discard themselves every time you use them, but the attack of Snorlax VMAX is so strong that it just doesn't matter. Swinging for anywhere between, even under Sudowoodo. If you get Sudowoodo bench locked, you're still dealing 180 damage for 1 energy. And then if you have your whole bench, you're dealing 300 damage. So 300 for 1 energy that discards itself, that's about as good as it gets. And the 4 triple acceleration energy was quite simply all you needed to launch your win condition versus almost every deck in format. All around, I felt like this deck had positive matchups against the field, and I was very happy with how it ran over the course of the tournament. I would play it again. Most definitely, I decided to tech for Shocklock, really just hoping that the control decks that I saw in day 2 were Shocklock, and I took a wager there. It didn't pay off because I didn't play against any Shocklocks, but that being said, the deck is still just so consistent and so strong that it was enough to get me to a top 8 finish, and I'm really excited about that. Big thank you to Full Grip Games for sponsoring me as a player, and also big thank you to everybody who supported the shop this weekend at the booth and stopped by selling your bulk to Full Grip Games, and also to everybody who shops at Full Grip Games. Full Grip had an amazing weekend at the Collinsville Regional Championships as well, and thank you so much to everybody who supported me on Twitch. We were building this deck the whole week leading up to the Collinsville Regional Championships live on Twitch. So if you wanted to have access to the list, it was just out there on twitch.tv/TrickyJim as we were testing it, refining it, and coming to these different conclusions about the deck and its matchups in expanded format. So thank you so much to everybody who's a part of that Twitch community as well, and thank you guys for watching the video. Make sure to like the video, sub to the channel, ring that bell, and check out fullgripcodes.com for instant PTCGO code delivery. And that about does it. So cheers, and here's to hopefully some more vlogs in the future. I was happy to be able to vlog this event and get back on that vlog game for YouTube. So thank you guys for encouraging me to do this, and have a great day. Peace.